In this crazy world, it's so hard to unwind. So I'm taking time just for me. Gonna find my peace, let my soul be free. In the quiet moments, that's where I'll find a little room to breathe and leave it all behind. Give me room to breathe, I need some time to heal my heart, to clear my mind. Gonna love myself, yeah, I believe in the power of me. Just give me room to breathe.
Great new day to all my self-care friends and family. Welcome back to another Room to Breathe podcast. I am your host, Life Coach 614, and I am so happy that you've made space to be here with us today. Now, before we get started, if you're feeling the vibe, I want to ask you to show us some love. Go ahead and tap that screen, like, comment, and most importantly, please share this out with someone who could use a little healing energy today. And if this is your first time here, or you haven't done so already, be sure to give us a follow and subscribe to our channel so that way you're always tapped in when new content drops. Excuse me. I also want to personally invite you to visit my website at theselfcareclub.org, where you will find everything from affirmative apparel to motivational merch and free resources designed to nourish your growth and remind you that you are supported every step of the way. Here at Room to Breathe, we believe in healing and community, growing one breath, one moment, one day at a time. So today, I encourage you to give yourself permission to pause, to reflect, and to make space for peace, for growth, but most importantly for you. And if you are someone who is ready to heal out loud, we invite you to join our Room to Breathe community powered by school. You can find all the details on our website or through the link in my bio. Now, let's get ready to breathe, reflect, and grow together. Before we really jump into things, I want to ask you something today. And it might feel a little uncomfortable at first, not because it's harsh, but because it's honest. And honesty is a little uncomfortable sometimes. I want to start by asking everyone, who are you when nobody needs you? Who are you when nobody needs you? Not when you're the strong one holding everything together. Not when you're the fixer, the problem solver, or the one everybody calls when life starts lifing. Not the one, when your phone stays buzzing with people venting and leaning and pulling on your energy, your wisdom, your patience. I want to know, who are you when it's quiet? When those notifications slow down? When no one is asking you for advice? When no one needs you to show up or show out or save the day? Who are you when there's nothing to prove? When you're not being validated through usefulness? When your worth isn't being measured by how much you give or how much you can carry? Because for a lot of us, silence doesn't really feel like peace, right? It feels like unfamiliar territory. It gets a little awkward. Right? It feels like exposure. It sometimes even feels lonely. And so if that question made you pause, if it made you a little uncomfortable, or if it stirred something that you couldn't really immediately name, good. Good for you. Because that pause, that resistance to the question, that tight feeling that you maybe felt in your chest, that's where healing starts. See, this conversation isn't about stripping you of who you've been, right? It's about making room to discover who you are beyond the obligations, beyond survival, beyond being everything to everyone else. So family, get comfortable, because we're about to get a little uncomfortable. Thank you so much. Welcome in, Mars. Elevated awakenings to you. So yeah, we're going to get a little uncomfortable, y'all. So I want you guys to unclench wherever you've been holding. Let your shoulders drop. Take a breath with me. Inhale. And exhale. Again, inhale. And exhale. Now let's get ready to talk about who you are. Not because you're needed, but because you are enough. All right? Again, not because you're needed, because you are enough. So let's get into this conversation on, when your identity is built on being needed. For those of you who are having any sort of technical issues on the TikTok side, I would recommend that you just go out and come back in. Hopefully that will fix it for you. Or you know what to do. Head over to, the West Side Connects. Check it out. But okay, guys, let's get into this. For a lot of us, I think that being needed wasn't just something that we did, right? It became who we were. We learned early that love showed up when we were useful, right? That praise followed performance. That application came after sacrifice. So you became dependable, right? Yeah. Thank you so much, Aisha. I appreciate the duality, sis. So again, we learned, that when you became dependable, you became reliable. You became the one who could handle it. And don't get me wrong, there is strength in that. Okay? There is resilience there. There's wisdom there. But somewhere along the way, being needed started to feel like proof that you mattered. You weren't just showing up out of love, you were showing up out of conditioning. Because when people needed you, you felt seen. You felt heard. You felt chosen. You felt secure. And when nobody needed you, that's when the questions start to creep in, right? Am I still valuable if I'm not doing? Am I still loved if I'm not giving? Do I even know who I am without this particular role attached to me? See, many of us were celebrated for our strength, but nobody stopped to ask if it was costing us. We were praised for so long for being the strong one while we were quietly burning out. Applauded for being selfless while learning how to abandon ourselves. Labeled as a blessing while feeling drained and unseen. So when the phone stops ringing, when the emergencies dry up, when the chaos gets quiet, it doesn't feel like relief, right? It feels like a loss, like something's missing. Because if your identity has been built around being needed, then not being needed makes you feel like you've just disappeared. And that's not because you're insecure. It's because nobody ever taught you how to exist without earning your place. And so I think that this is where the healing work begins, not by shaming that version of you, but simply by, just gently asking, who am I when I don't have to perform for love? Who am I when I'm not in demand? Who am I when my hands are empty, but my heart is still full? See, we're not tearing down who you've been. We're expanding who you're allowed to become. I want to talk about why stillness feels uncomfortable. See, for many of us, stillness doesn't always feel like peace, right? It doesn't feel peaceful. It feels unsettling. Because when you've lived in survival mode for so long, your body learns to associate movement with safety, right? Busy feels normal. Urgency feels familiar. Chaos feels predictable. So when things finally slow down, when there's nothing pulling at you, when the noise fades, your nervous system doesn't immediately react. Right, Brooks? Right? Your nervous system can't relax. It starts to panic. And it's not because something is wrong, but because it doesn't recognize calm as safe yet. See, stillness removes distraction. And without distractions, you're left with yourself. And so, like Brooks said, your thoughts get louder. Your feelings start to rise to the surface. The things that you've been outrunning finally catch up with you. And let's be honest, a lot of us learned how to function, not how to feel. We learned how to push through exhaustion, how to override discomfort, how to keep going even when our spirit was tired. So when you finally sit down, you know, when the to-do list gets quiet, when nobody needs anything from you, your body doesn't just sigh in relief, it braces, right? Yeah, Coach Sonya, this is the best side. I'm going to just tell you, it's the best side. And pretty soon it may be the only side, so I'm glad you're here. But, you know, when I think about it, rest sometimes feels undeserved, right? Peace feels unfamiliar. Silence feels like a setup. But I need you guys to hear me when I say this. That discomfort doesn't mean that you're bad at resting. Okay? It means that your body has been protecting you for far too long. So that stillness is not empty. It is revealing. And when I say it's revealing, it reveals what you've been carrying, what you've been suppressing, what you never had, time or permission to process. And so for many people, that can feel scary. But it's also where healing lives. Because the goal isn't to force yourself into calm. The goal is to teach your body that calm is safe. And to do so slowly, gently, and without judgment. I want you to know that you're not broken because the stillness feels loud. You're just learning a new language. And it takes time. And that language that you're learning is one where peace doesn't have to be earned through exhaustion. And this part of the journey requires patience. Patience with your body. Patience with your mind. Patience with yourself. Welcome in, Diana. Elevated Awakenings. So again, be patient with yourself. It is time for us to meet ourselves without a role. Right? This is the part where it gets real. Because when all those roles fall away, when you're not the strong one, the fixer, the dependable one, or when nobody's asking you to show up in a specific way, you are left with a version of yourself that might feel unfamiliar. And for a lot of people, that moment brings up the quiet truth that I don't actually know who I am when I'm not being useful. I think that we spend so much of our lives performing roles that we rarely stop to ask whether those roles still fit. And I'm talking about the role of the caretaker, the leader, the support system, the peacekeeper, right? At first, those roles may have been necessary, right? They kept things moving. They helped you to survive. But survival roles aren't meant to be lifelong identities. Just because that is how you identify then doesn't mean it's who you were meant to be forever. Survival roles are not meant to become lifelong identities. So when life finally creates space, when you're no longer needed in that same way, it can feel a little disorienting. Like standing in a room with no mirrors and no instructions. And here's the part that I really want you to hear clearly. Not knowing who you are without a role does not mean that you lack identity. It just means that you were never given the chance to explore it. Nobody asked you what you liked. Nobody asked you what brings you joy. Hey, beautiful, elevated awakening stuff. Nobody asked you, what made you feel alive outside of the responsibility. So of course it feels awkward when you meet yourself without a script, right? But this moment, this pause isn't an ending. It's an invitation. An invitation to learn yourself as a person, not as a function. To explore your desires without attaching them to productivity. To listen to your inner voice without filtering it through obligation. You are allowed to be curious about who you are becoming. And you are allowed to redefine yourself without guilt. You don't have to figure it all out at once. This isn't, throwing away every role that you've had. It isn't, about just kind of discarding or kind of shunning the old you. It's about deciding which ones still belong in this season and which ones are you ready to release. Because the truth is, you are more than what you do for others. You are more than how well you hold things together. You are worthy of knowing yourself deeply, not just being known for what you provide. And meeting yourself without a role, even though it could be scary, I want you to understand that that is sacred healing work. There's also going to come a point where grieving the version of you that survived happens. See, before you can fully step into who you're becoming, you have to acknowledge who you've been. Thank you so much. Elevated Awakening, Shonda, welcome in. So again, before you can step into who you are becoming fully, you must acknowledge who you've been. Who you've been. And I think that for many of us, that means grieving the version of ourselves that did what he or she had to do to survive. The version who stayed strong when breaking down was not an option. The version who kept showing up even when he or she was exhausted. The version who learned how to put her needs last so everything else could stay afloat. But that version of you wasn't weak. It wasn't foolish. It was adaptive, right? That version of you learned how to read the room before he or she learned how to listen to themselves. You learned how to carry emotional weight that was never yours to hold. You learned how to stay useful so that way you wouldn't be abandoned. And that deserves acknowledgement. Because growth isn't about pretending that that version of you never existed. It's about honoring that version of you without letting her run your life anymore. It's like, sis, thank you for all that you've done, but I got this. I got this. Just a reminder for those of you on TikTok, I believe that there's some technical issues. So you know that you can head elsewhere. Admins, put that in the chat so they can have a better experience. Because I can't say it. But yeah, come on over. But yeah, you guys, that version of you deserves acknowledgement. But you have to just let her know that, you know what? You're not in charge anymore. You're not running the show anymore. And, you know, we have to understand that grief doesn't always come from loss. It also comes from release, right? You might grieve the years that you spent overgiving, the rest that you didn't allow yourself to have, the boundaries you didn't know how to set. You might grieve the fact that no one protected you the way that you now protect yourself. And that grief can feel heavy, but it's also necessary, because you can't rush past the version of you that kept you alive and expect to feel whole. This is the moment where compassion matters more than criticism. So instead of asking yourself, why did I let myself do that for so long? Try asking, what was I trying to survive? That question changes everything. What was I trying to survive? See, the healed version of you doesn't look back with judgment, right? That version of you looks back with gratitude. That version of you says, thank you, right? Girl, thank you for letting me get here, but I've got it from here. Spark Motivation, welcome in. You don't have to disown you don't have to disown that version of yourself. You just don't have to live there anymore, right? So allowing yourself to grieve that version of you, to honor that version of you, to release that version of you with love, that's closure. It's about discovering desire, not duty. We've spent so long, right? So much time living out of duty. And so desire can feel a little unfamiliar, even selfish, right? You're used to asking what needs to be done. What does everybody else need from me? What's the responsible thing for me to do? So when somebody finally asks you what you want, baby, you freeze. You like, wait, what? What do I want? Oh, my needs matter too, right? And so you freeze. And it's not because you don't want anything. It's just because that nobody ever made space for you to want without guilt. For many of us, I think desire was postponed, right? It was put on hold, labeled as impractical. We were taught to prioritize stability over satisfaction, duty over delight, responsibility over rest. So rediscovering desire doesn't happen all at once. It happens in whispers, right? Maybe it's a quiet craving for ease or a pull towards creativity, a longing for joy that isn't attached to productivity. And here's the reframe that I want to make sure that you guys hear clearly. Desire is not reckless. Desire is information. I mean, just think about it. It tells you where your spirit wants to go next. This season isn't about abandoning responsibility. It's about no longer abandoning yourself. So instead of asking, what am I supposed to do? Try asking, what feels nourishing right now? What brings me a sense of aliveness? What do I want? Not proving anything, but what do I want to simply enjoy? And that might feel uncomfortable at first because choosing yourself after years of self-neglect tends to feel foreign. But you are allowed to want ease. You are allowed to want joy. You are allowed to want a life that feels good, not just one that looks good from the outside. Your desires don't need to make sense to anyone else. They don't need to be explained nor justified. So yeah, if Netflix and heal is your jam now, let it be. All right? There's nothing wrong with sitting on the couch and binge watching a show or, grabbing a book and just disconnecting from the world. And you know what? The more you listen to your desire instead of duty, the more you reconnect with who you actually are. Right? Not who you were trained to be, but who you actually are. This is where self-trust begins. It is time for us to begin building a life that isn't dependent upon demand. And I know that a lot of us were taught, either directly or indirectly, that being in demand meant being important. If people needed you, you mattered. If your calendar was full, if you're booked and busy, then you're valuable. If everyone could access you, then you are doing something right. So the idea of building a life that is not dependent on demand can feel unsettling. Because if you're not constantly needed, who holds your place or what holds your place in other people's lives? But the truth is, a healed life isn't one where nobody needs you. It's one where you don't need to be needed to feel worthy. This is where boundaries stop becoming, theoretical and they start being lived. You begin to realize, that your time is sacred. Your time is valuable. That your energy is finite. Okay? Your peace is non-negotiable. This is the moment where, you stop measuring your value by how available you are. You stop over-explaining your no. You stop feeling guilty for choosing rest over rescue. And that shift, right? That shift doesn't make you cold. That shift makes you clear. You are still loving. You are still loving. You're just not self-abandoning. You're still generous. You're just not depleted. You're still present, just not constantly accessible. This season requires you to redefine what connection looks like. Not urgency, not obligation, not out of demand, right? Relationships that survive your boundaries are the ones that are rooted in respect and not convenience. And yeah, some people are going to struggle with this new version of you, right? Not because you've changed for the worse, but because you're no longer overextending for their comfort. Let them adjust, right? Let them adjust. See, you're not here to manage other people's expectations at the expense of your own well-being. Like, y'all, if I could climb to a mountaintop and scream that would be my phrase of the day, honey. Let me put that in the chat for y'all, because I need you to understand, you are not here to manage other people's expectations at the expense of your own well-being. Building a life that isn't dependent on demand means that your worth doesn't fluctuate based on how much you give. You're valuable when you're busy. You're valuable when you're resting. You're valuable when you're quiet. Moral of the story is you're valuable. And once you know that, you start to move differently. We have to start redefining self-care as identity work. See, we talk about self-care a lot, but most of the time we talk about it as something you do, right? You take a break, you book the massage, you light the candle. And yes, all of those things matter, but they're not the whole picture. Real self-care is deeper than routines. It's identity work. It's the quiet, ongoing practice of deciding who you are and who you are no longer willing to be. It's choosing alignment over approval, truth over performance, presence over pressure. Self-care isn't saying, I don't need to burn myself out to belong. It's recognizing when you're slipping back into the old patterns, the overgiving, over-explaining, overextending, right? I'm over it. I'm just gently choosing differently, not with punishment, but with awareness. And that kind of self-care requires honesty. Honesty about what drains you. Honesty about what you tolerate. Honesty about who you become when you're trying to earn love instead of simply receiving it. And here's a part that I think we don't say enough. As your identity starts to shift, your habits will too. You'll stop doing things just because you always have. You'll start asking, does this align with who I am now? And sometimes the most radical self-care isn't about adding something new. Sometimes it's just simply removing what no longer fits. And that's something that I've been coming to the realization with for myself. It wasn't about me adding another to-do, another self-care task. For me, the season that I am in has been more about the decluttering, right? What do I need to remove? What no longer serves me in this season, right? Maybe for some of you, it's releasing the need to explain yourself or letting go of roles that you've outgrown. Choosing rest without waiting for exhaustion. See, this is where self-care stops being occasional and becomes embodied, right? It's who you are. So when I say like, oh yeah, I'm the self-care queen, honey, it's because self-care is who I am. At every single moment of every single day, I am trying to figure out how I can best serve me. Every single moment of every single day, I am trying to figure out how can I fill my cup up. And I know y'all see my cup running over, but honey, I'm still trying to pour into my cup every single day. I'm like, can I read a book? How can I schedule a nap in today? How can I do this? What am I going to watch on Netflix today? Right? Be looking over at the phone, lighting up. I'll get back to him one day. Right? Because I know that, everything that goes inside that cup is for me. So I'm going to embody it. Hey, Mr. Awesome, Elevated Awakenings King. Welcome in. We've missed you too. Thank you so much. And for those of you who are experiencing glitching, how do I do this? Somebody else who's still on TikTok, tell them where the family's at. Because TikTok is tripping today. Probably because we was picking with them yesterday, but touche. But no, I mean, at some point you just have to really understand that everything that goes inside your cup is for you. Everything that overflows outside of that cup is for everybody else. And so you should always be focused on, thank you guys. You should always be focused on filling your cup up. And that's not selfish, because the fuller that you keep your cup, the more that you keep your cup overflowing, the more you have to give to everyone else. And so, like I said, when you start to release the need to explain yourself, when you begin letting go of the roles that you've outgrown and start choosing rest without waiting for exhaustion, that is where self-care stops being occasional. It stops being something you do from time to time, and it starts to become who you are. And in this world where anybody can identify as anything that you want to be, baby, I identify as self-care. Right? It's not something that you squeeze in when everything else is done. It becomes the foundation you build your life on. So many of my clients, when they come to me in the beginning, and I'm like, all right, well, what does your self-care look like? And they're like, oh, well, I try to make time for it. Oh, I try to do this, or I don't really have time. I just be like, girl, we got so much work to do, right? Because you should wake up and every single day should begin with you. I don't care if you're a mom, a dad, if you're the caretaker. I don't care what your job is, what your roles are, what hats you wear, what masks you put on. Every single day should start with you. You are the root. So it should begin with you. When self-care becomes identity work, you don't just practice peace, you protect it. You embody it. So let's be real for a second. When nobody needs you, when nobody's calling, when nobody's asking for help, when your calendar is, when your calendar isn't full and your phone is quiet, what do? And I don't mean what should you do, right? I mean, what do you actually do when nobody needs you? What do you do? Do you get restless? Do you start scrolling? Do you suddenly feel the urge to be productive even when you're tired? Because a lot of us don't know how to just sit with ourselves, right? We don't know how to just be. Hey, Kale, Elevated Awakenings. It's Laden, welcome in. Check out the pinned comment, guys. A lot of us don't know how to just sit with ourselves, right? Because it feels weird. We say that we want peace, but when it shows up, we don't trust it. We say that we want rest, but when we get it, we feel guilty. We say we're tired of being everything for everybody. Thank you. We say that we're tired of being everything for everybody, but when nobody needs us, we feel unnecessary. You say that nobody needs you anyway, so are you saying that you don't need you either? Because sometimes I think that feeling, and this isn't to shame, this isn't judgment, but I honestly believe that sometimes when we are in that season of feeling like we're not needed, like primarily for people who, let's say like you're an empty nester, you've raised your kids, they go off, everybody's doing their thing, and now the title of mom, even though you're still a mother, you're still very much a mother, right? But this role of mom that you have been for over the years has now shifted because the kids are, they're off doing their thing. So all of a sudden, empty nesters feel like they're not needed. Or let's say it's someone and you were in a marriage and let's say you've lost your spouse, whether they passed away, divorced, whatever. You're in a relationship and it's ended, whatever, right? Now all of a sudden, that role as a wife has shifted. The people who used to call you and depend on you for everything, that is gone. So now you feel like nobody needs you. Sometimes I believe that in that particular season, because remember, this is all seasonal, right? In that particular season of your life, maybe it's time for you to check in and say, I need me. Maybe in this particular season, God is stripping away every single thing else from you in order to get you to pay attention to the fact that you need you. I honestly look forward to the days where I am not needed. Like, I pray for those moments. To be honest and transparent with y'all, one of the things that I asked for my birthday was 24 hours of not being needed. I don't want to prepare a meal. I do not want to deal with the laundry. I don't want to do with anything. I want to check out for 24 hours and check in with Shantae for 24 hours. So if you're in a season where you feel like nobody needs you, maybe it's time for you to check in to say, but what do I need? See, not being needed by other people doesn't mean that you're not valuable. It doesn't mean that you're not worthy. It doesn't mean that you're not deserving. In fact, it means that you need to check in with you because you deserve more. Instead of running around trying to pour and fill up everybody else's cup, tend to your own cup. But again, that's a hard thing for us to admit. That's foreign. So again, if that's you, right? I just want you to know that you're not wrong. You're not broken. Unfortunately, you've just been trained to equate being needed with being worthy. So when the demand disappears, it feels like something is missing. But really, the only thing that's missing is familiarity. You're not empty. You're just unused to this version of you. The version of you that doesn't have to the version of you that doesn't have to show up strong. The version who isn't fixing anything. The version who doesn't have the answers. And honestly, that version of you deserves your attention. Not so you can improve her, not so you can heal her faster, but so you can get to know her. Ask yourself, no pressure, no right answers. Who am I when I'm not proving anything? What do I enjoy when nobody's watching? What comes up when I stop staying busy on purpose? Coach Shishi, welcome in. Elevated awakenings to you. I'm going to repeat those questions again because I think that they're awesome prompts for my journalers out there. Who am I when I'm not proving anything? What do I enjoy when nobody is watching? What comes up when I stop staying busy on purpose? What comes up when I stop staying busy on purpose? And guess what? If your answer is I don't know yet, that's not a failure. That's honesty. And honesty is the doorway. So instead of rushing to feel the silence, I want to make sure I say it right. Instead of rushing to fill the silence, try staying with it just a little bit longer. Let it be awkward. Let it be quiet. Let it be unfamiliar. Because this is you meeting yourself without an audience. And that matters way more than you think. I want you all to know that you don't have to earn your place. If this episode stirred something in you, I really just want you to sit with it. Not rush past it. Not to explain it. Not to turn it into another to-do list. You got enough to do. All right? You don't need another to-do list. I just want you to notice it. Because the work that we did today wasn't just about fixing anything. It was simply about seeing yourself clearly. Maybe for the first time without a role attached. And that's not light work. If you realize that you've been defining yourself by how needed you are, I want you to know that there's no shame in that. You did what you had to do to survive. You learned how to stay useful in rooms where being needed felt safer than being seen. But survival isn't the finish line. And you don't have to keep living like your worth is conditional. You don't have to earn rest by exhaustion. You don't have to prove love through overgiving. You don't have to stay available just to feel valuable. You are allowed to exist fully, quietly, honestly, even when nobody needs anything from you. So as you move through the rest of your day, I invite you to do one small thing differently. Just one. Have an amazing day, Mars. Thank you so much, beautiful. I just want you to do one small thing differently. When you feel the urge to fill the silence, I want you to pause. When you feel the need to be useful, I want you to check in with yourself. When you feel guilty for resting, I want you to remind yourself that rest is not a reward, it is a right. And if this episode met you where you are, I want you to know that you don't have to do this work alone. This is why Room2Breathe Project exists, right? An intentional space to slow down, to heal out loud, to reconnect with who you are beneath the roles and expectations. So if you're feeling the shift, even just a little, I want you to drop a green heart. Drop a green heart in the chat for me. It is our quiet way of saying, I'm choosing me too. I am showing up for me too. Now, before we close, I do just want to leave you all with a little love and light. As always, I encourage you to keep breathing through the highs, the lows, and every moment in between. I want you to keep choosing peace, even if it feels out of reach. And know that here at the Self-Care Club, you will always be seen, always valued, and always supported. So don't be afraid to take up space, speak your truth, and make a little room for you to breathe. I love each and every one of you to life, and I am praying that your day is not just amazing, but aligned, intentional, and yes, on purpose, filled with purpose. This has been another Room to Breathe podcast, and I look forward to connecting with you all again soon. Thank you.